When it lifts off the runway, the ground shakes. 4 engines roaring at full afterburner, each one producing more thrust than any combat aircraft engine ever built. A white 54-meter fuselage climbing into the sky like a shark ascending through water. Variable geometry wings sweeping back as it accelerates past the speed of sound. This is the Tupolev Tu-160. NATO calls it the Blackjack. The Russians call it something more poetic, the White Swan. It is the largest combat aircraft on Earth, the fastest strategic bomber ever built, and right now, in 2026, it is still flying, still carrying cruise missiles, still shaping the outcome of a real war. This is its story. To understand the Tu-160, you need to go back to the early 1970s, a decade when the Cold War arms race was at its peak, and both superpowers were designing the next generation of nuclear delivery systems. The United States was developing the Rockwell B-1 Lancer, a supersonic swing-wing strategic bomber meant to replace the aging B-52. The Soviets watched closely, and they needed an answer. In 1972, the Soviet Air Forces issued a requirement for a new long-range strategic bomber. It had to be fast, it had to carry nuclear weapons over intercontinental distances, and it had to be able to penetrate modern NATO air defenses. 3 design bureaus competed: Tupolev, Sukhoi, and Myasishchev. The Myasishchev M18 design was technically favored, but Tupolev, with its long track record and institutional weight, was awarded the contract in 1973. Under the direction of chief designer Valery Bliznyuk, Tupolev's team set to work. What they produced drew on lessons from the Tu-144 supersonic transport and the earlier Tu-22M backfire bomber. The fuselage was shaped for speed. The variable sweep wings could spread wide for takeoff and cruise, then snap back into a delta for supersonic dash. The result was unlike anything the world had seen. The prototype first flew on December 18, 1981. 6 years later, in April 1987, the Tu-160 entered service with the Soviet Air Forces, the last strategic bomber ever designed for the USSR. Let's talk about what this machine actually is, because the specifications are genuinely staggering. The Tu-160 is 54.1 meters long. That's longer than a Boeing B-52 Stratofortress by several meters. Its wingspan stretches to 55.7 meters when fully spread, collapsing to 35.6 meters when swept back for high-speed flight. At maximum takeoff weight, it tips the scales at 275,000 kilograms, over 600,000 pounds. It is the heaviest combat aircraft ever built. Power comes from 4 Kuznetsov NK-32 afterburning turbofan engines, the most powerful engines ever fitted to a combat aircraft, each producing approximately 55,000 pounds of thrust with afterburner. Total thrust, 220,000 pounds. Combined, they push the Tu-160 to a top speed of Mach 2.05, twice the speed of sound, making it also the fastest strategic bomber in history. Range, unrefueled, over 12,000 kilometers. With aerial refueling, that range becomes effectively unlimited. Past missions have seen Tu-160S airborne for more than 23 hours, covering over 20,000 kilometers in a single flight. And the weapons load? Up to 45,000 kilograms of munitions, nearly 100,000 pounds, delivered from 2 internal rotary launchers that can carry long-range cruise missiles, nuclear gravity bombs, or conventional weapons. The Tu-160 holds 44 world aviation records. Not 4, not 14, 44. By 1992, when the Soviet Union had already collapsed, 36 Tu-160S had been built at the Kazan Aircraft Production Association in Tatarstan. Then production stopped. The dissolution of the USSR created an immediate crisis. The bombers were spread across former Soviet territory. A significant number ended up in Ukraine, stationed at Pryluki Air Base. For years, Russia and Ukraine argued over ownership. Some aircraft were eventually returned to Russia. Others were scrapped as part of nuclear arms reduction agreements. By the mid-1990s, Russia's long-range aviation branch had been badly degraded. Strategic patrols, the long-range flights that had kept NATO on edge throughout the Cold War, were suspended entirely in 1991. Funding dried up, crews stopped flying. The White Swan sat in hangar after hangar, slowly deteriorating. Then came Vladimir Putin, and a deliberate decision to resurrect Russian strategic power. In 2000, a new Tu-160 was delivered to the Russian Air Force, the first since the Soviet era. Strategic aviation patrols resumed. Tu-160s began appearing over the Arctic, over the Atlantic, near NATO airspace, prompting fighter intercepts and diplomatic protests. In 2008, 2 Tu-160s made a high-profile visit to Venezuela, a direct message to the United States. The White Swan was back. For decades, the Tu-160 was a deterrent weapon, meant to be seen, feared, and never actually used. That changed in November 2015. When Russia intervened in the Syrian civil war, the Tu-160 flew its first combat missions. Flying from Engels Air Base deep inside Russia, the bombers launched Kh-101 cruise missiles, Russia's newest long-range standoff weapon, at targets inside Syria. They never crossed into Syrian airspace. They didn't need to. The Kh-101 has a range of over 4,000 kilometers. The strikes were, in part, a military test, the first real combat evaluation of the Kh-101 under operational conditions. Russian officials claimed hits on ISIS command posts, training camps, and weapons depots. But the deeper message was strategic. Russia could project precise long-range firepower from its own territory, striking targets thousands of kilometers away. The Tu-160 had proven it wasn't just a museum piece. Then came February 2022, and Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and a new, grimmer chapter for the Blackjack. The Tu-95 MS bomber, the older turboprop-powered workhorse, was quickly deployed to launch Kh-101 missiles against Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. But for a long time, the Tu-160 was held in reserve, too valuable to risk, too expensive to operate at scale. That changed. As the war ground on and Russia's Tu-95 fleet took losses, Tu-160 CS began appearing in strike missions, launching salvos of Kh-101 cruise missiles at Ukrainian power stations, air defense sites, and military infrastructure. In one May 2023 strike alone, Russian bombers launched 18 Kh-101 missiles in a single nighttime attack. The picture today, as of 2026, is complicated. Russia has 18 Tu-160M aircraft in service, but only around 7 are actively flying combat missions at any given time. The rest are in maintenance, undergoing modernization, or assigned to testing and training. Ukraine's strikes on Russian air bases, including the famous attacks on Engels Air Base, have forced Russia to relocate aircraft to the Ukrainka Air Base in the Amur region, thousands of kilometers east, far from Ukrainian drone range. The White Swan has discovered it is not invulnerable. Russia's answer to the Tu-160's aging systems is the Tu-160M modernization program, arguably one of the most ambitious aircraft upgrade programs in the world. The Tu-160M features a completely new digital glass cockpit, replacing the original analog instruments. The NK-32-02 engines, an upgraded version of the originals, are more fuel-efficient and more powerful, extending range significantly. New avionics include the Novella NV 1.70 radar, modern communication systems, improved electronic warfare equipment, and updated navigation. Weapons have evolved too. The Tu-160M can carry the Kh-101 conventional cruise missile and its nuclear-armed twin, the Kh-102. It can carry up to 12 of these missiles across 2 internal bays. In February 2024, President Putin personally flew aboard a Tu-160M, a carefully staged political statement about the aircraft's symbolic importance to Russia's military identity. Production has also restarted at Kazan, with a new production facility coming online in early 2026. Russia's stated goal is to eventually operate approximately 30 Tu-160Ms, a number that, if achieved, would represent the largest Blackjack fleet in history. Where does the Tu-160 sit in the world of strategic bombers? The United States operates the B-52, the B-1B Lancer, and the new B-21 Raider. The B-21 is stealth, subsonic, and built for the 21st century. China's H-20 flying wing bomber is in development. Russia's own next-generation stealth bomber, the PAKDA, has been on the drawing board for years, but development is significantly delayed, partly because of the war in Ukraine consuming resources. For now, the Tu-160 is the only intercontinental range strategic bomber still in active production anywhere in the world. The B-2 Spirit stopped production in 2000. The B-21 and H-20 haven't entered production yet. That makes the Blackjack, improbably, the only show in town. The Tu-160 was born during one war that never turned hot, the Cold War. It was designed to carry nuclear weapons it was never supposed to use, as a deterrent that was supposed to keep the peace. 4 decades later, it's carrying conventional cruise missiles in a very real, very hot war in Ukraine. It has become what no one quite imagined when Tupolev's designers were drafting blueprints in the 1970s. An active, operational weapon system in a live European conflict. It has outlasted the country that built it. It has outlasted the arms control treaties designed to limit it. And thanks to modernization, it may outlast another generation of strategic competition entirely. the White Swan, the Blackjack, the largest, fastest combat aircraft on Earth. Still flying, still dangerous. And still, after all these years, impossible to ignore. Does any other bomber even come close? Drop your answer below. Follow for more. See you in next one.